Da, da, da. Da, da, da. Hi, so tired of that counter. Welcome. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the program. My name is Dean. We have a cool show for you today. Really cool show. Bonzi's here to talk about stepping on anthills and golfing naked, as well as his latest post, which is all about guys that work out. So that'll be cool. I think he's still in Palm Desert, too. And he spent $40 on something and got a terrible return. Anyway, we'll talk to Bonzi about it coming up in a minute. Lachlan Cross from 95.7 Cruise FM in Edmonton is here. We're going to talk a little bit about unvaccinated versus vaccinated. New numbers are coming out. It may surprise you. Being unvaccinated is bad right now. We only have to repeat it like a fucking 1,000 times. But anyway. Our guest today, very happy to have him here with us. He is trying to do God's work on behalf of you and me and everybody else that pays the biggest Wi-Fi rates, the biggest cell rates. We're getting boned. He works for Tech Savvy. He is the VP of Engagement and a few other things. Please welcome everybody, including Peter Nowak from Tech Savvy, to the podcast. Peter is here. He's a former journalist turned executive with a big company, with a big time company. So, we were talking about it earlier.
His wife got sick and tired of his paycheck and said, "Listen, Peter,
so did I.
I'm done. I'm done driving a Saturn."
Yeah. So, great to see you, Peter. I know you and I have talked several times. You've been terrific about explaining, the fight, the Tech Savvy and third-party providers. If I'm saying anything wrong, stop me and correct me. But third-party providers like yourself trying to give people like affordable rates. As we all know, Canada pays the steepest prices for data, cell service, Wi-Fi, etc. Not even close. Bell, Rogers, TELUS all have everything cornered, and we know what happened with the CRTC. So we're going to get to that, and we're going to get to how it's affected business, how it affects the economy in such a negative way as well. But how does one go, Peter, from a world-class journalist to an executive? Because to me, in my mind, that's like going from a homeless person to a life coach.
Well, I definitely hope nobody looks to me for life coaching, because that would be a very bad road to go down. I was a journalist for over 20 years, and I've focused a lot on technology and telecom in Canada. And so I was really, dialed into all of the problems that we have here, and very aware of them. And of course, companies like Tech Savvy are very aware of those problems too, because they live with them every single day. And
right.
they actually they approached me a couple of years ago. I think they wanted to see if I would work for them, and I was like, no, I'm doing my own thing. I'm still in the journalism thing. But it was kind of timing. Timing was right. The pandemic came along. I started in November at Tech Savvy, and I think it kind of happened last summer where the pandemic came along. I think it freaked a lot of us out. It was the timing for me was like, I feel like I need to do something different. I feel like I need to do something more stable. Like my interests have always, the very first thing I wrote for Tech Savvy was an explanation of how what they do has always aligned with what I do. So if I'm going to, quote unquote, sell out as a journalist, and as we used to say in journalism, it's like going over to the dark side. This was as not as dark as, or as light a dark side as there was, I think you could say.
Right, is there a quick explanation, Peter, for why we are so taken advantage of in Canada by, let's just pick one example, cell phone companies. Like we just get railed every month on our cell phone bill. Is it because we're Canadians and we don't fight back enough, or what's the quick and dirty explanation on it?
There are a lot of reasons for that, but we don't want to get into all of them because we'd be here for hours. Cell phones and internet, we get raked over the coals for both, and they each have their own different explanations. In a lot of ways, they're very similar explanations. But I think the fact of the matter on both cases is that we have these big giant companies, Bell, Rogers, TELUS, and they are more protected from competition than any of their counterparts almost anywhere else in the world. That's the quick and dirty.
Okay,
and that's
so
a government problem.
It is a government problem. It's a legal problem, like the way the laws are set up. For the longest time, we had rules that prevented foreign investors or foreign companies from coming into Canada and competing against these companies, which almost no other advanced country in the world has. So if you look at a country like, say, let's just say, take Australia, for example, their mobile providers there are Telstra. It's an Australian company. There's Optus. I'm not sure where the ownerships of these companies lie, but I know that a few years ago this was the case. Optus is a company that was based in Singapore. You had Vodafone, a company, a British company. So you have all these, foreign companies coming in, investing, setting up competitors. In Canada, we have none of that. We did change the rules a little bit a few years ago, where we do actually allow foreign investors to come in, but they're also the size of their investments are capped, or what they can do is capped. I think it's at like 10% of the market revenue or whatever. So you guys might remember a couple of years, or it's more than a couple of years now. You remember Wind Mobile, which ultimately became Freedom Mobile, which will soon probably become Rogers Mobile. When Wind was starting up, it was backed by a billionaire guy from the Middle East, and they had all kinds of problems because the Canadian gatekeepers were like, no, you're a foreign investor, we can't let you in. They had a lot of trouble starting up, and this has been the case for many, many years in Canada.
I woke up this morning and I thought to myself, I need another reason to hate the government. So thank you, Peter. This has just been spectacular. My daily goal of hating the government achieved.
Let's break that down though. Let's sorry, Peter, go ahead and then we'll break it down. Sorry.
Yeah, just to jump on that, like it's not any one government either. This is successive governments that this has been the problem. So it's not
they're
liberals,
all in
it's
the
not
same
conservative.
canoe.
Yeah.
So let's break that down. We got the quick and dirty about protectionism of the big three. Bell, Rogers, TELUS. We'll get into the government protection and what they pay the government for in just a minute. But I want to get to what Tech Savvy is and how the relationship was supposed to work with third-party providers like yourselves and the owners of those services like Bell, Rogers, TELUS, et cetera.
Yeah. And that's the crux of what's happening now. And this is a different kind of protectionism. So many, many years ago, most people were getting their phone or their internet services from a phone company, and if they're lucky, also from a cable company. So here in Ontario, for example, you probably have the option of either Bell or Rogers or Bell and Cogeco. That's if you're lucky. Not everybody has even a choice of two providers, so you might only have the one. So it was decided many years ago that, we need more competition for these services. So we're going to enable wholesale access. So what this is, and this is really, really tricky to explain without getting boring. So if I'm causing any of you guys your eyes.
Oh, don't worry. We'll tell you if it's boring or not.
So we have CRTC rules where basically the companies that own the wires that go to your house, which is, let's just use Ontario, Rogers and Bell, they have to allow third-party companies like Tech Savvy to access those wires, and we pay rates. We sort of pay rent on those wires, and the CRTC will ask these companies to say, okay, show us what it costs you to provide, that wire to this customer's house, and the companies do that, and of course they try to fudge the numbers. The CRTC looks at those numbers and then adjusts them, and then adds a profit margin for them. And then gives that cost to a company like Tech Savvy and says, here's your wholesale cost. Cool. So a company like Tech Savvy or any other independent internet provider, whether it's Distributel, Start.ca, there's a lot of them. They take that wholesale cost, they pay it to Bell or Rogers. They add their own costs. So whether that's marketing or paying for people like me to work there. And then, of course, they add on their own little profit margin. And that's their cost. And so there you have it. That's how basically wholesale internet works. Now, the key of this, and what I think is very poorly understood in Canada, is that you don't have to be a customer of an independent internet provider. You don't even have to know they exist, but they do determine what you pay for your internet, regardless of who you get your service from, even if it's from Bell or from Rogers. Because the point of these competitors, the point of this competition is that we discipline the prices that the big guys charge. So if it
You hold them
wasn't
accountable because your rates are that much lower, right?
so almost every time we're lower. So what happens is that prevents them from jacking their rates up to as much as they want. So that is the whole point of the wholesale regime. That's the whole point of the competition regime. But this has not been the case over the last year or two.
And why? And what happened? Because that's something that we've been talking about, as you know, here. We've been focusing on the relationship between Bell, Rogers, TELUS, and Ian Scott at the CRTC, and how ridiculous that whole fucking thing is. It's very kangaroo courty, if you ask me. We focused on that, but how and why were those rates? Because there was a recent decision where the CRTC scrapped a decision that they had previously made to somehow enable guys like you, start other companies to be able to give us rates that are more reflective with what is being paid around the world. And it may be a shock to some people, but our cell phone rates, our data rates are the highest in the entire world. There is not a country
that
true,
has
though, rates
Peter?
this high.
I'm not going to go so far as to say they're the highest. They're the absolute highest in the world. There's so many different factors that go into how you measure it.
We're in the top 5.
There is no doubt that they are among the highest. I think it's very safe to say that. Yes. So to answer Dean's question is, and again, there's a distinction to be made between cell phone prices and home internet prices. I'm talking primarily right now about home internet prices. Cell phone prices, that's a whole other ball of wax. But for the first, let's just deal with home internet prices. So what you were talking about, this recent decision, it actually goes back to 2016. The CRTC had taken a look at these wholesale rates that Bell, Rogers, and those big guys charge the small companies like TechSavvy, Distributel, and so on, and found that they had been grossly inflating those wholesale rates. Surprise, surprise. So
no way.
Yeah, I know. Shocker, right? It's like anybody who's ever paid an internet bill might have a good idea. So they lowered them temporarily. And then in 2019, they came to a final decision where they lowered them even more. And those are supposed to be the final wholesale rates. So of course, these companies appealed. They appealed to the CRTC, to the government, to the courts. Now, what ended up happening was the courts rejected the appeal. The federal government rejected the appeal, but sent it back to the CRTC and said, you might want to look at this a little bit more. And the CRTC in May 26th or 27th, I can't remember exactly when it was, that was kind of like D-Day for independent internet providers and consumers, because the CRTC, lo and behold, completely reverses those judgments and went back to these rates that they set in 2016. They said, we made a lot of mistakes here. So instead of recalculating what these wholesale rates should be, we're just going to go back to what they were in 2016. So the other thing that is important is when they did set those rates in 2016, they also said, you know what, you guys have, to Bell and Rogers, you guys have been overcharging for years, so you're going to have to repay what you overcharged to these smaller companies. And this was to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars. And this is where this is all holistic, man. So those hundreds of millions of dollars, a lot of the independent companies, TechSavvy included, were going to use those dollars to build their own networks, to get involved with wireless, to actually buy. If you want to sell wireless service in this country, you have to have something called Spectrum, which is like the licenses that radio wave licenses. And so they were going to buy those licenses. And when those hundreds of millions of dollars were canceled, so were those plans. And so not only did the CRTC really kneecap home internet competition, they also stopped dead in its tracks new competition for cell phone services.
Does the general public know this, Peter?
No, this is arcane stuff, and it's like, honestly, over the last, have you thought about wholesale internet services? No, over the last year?
Today. Yeah, not today. It didn't like when I got up this morning, I thought of okay, I got to watch my kid's dog. I got a couple other things to do, and wholesale internet prices just came to me in this conversation.
Slipped your mind, yeah.
I think over the last year, most of us were concentrating on not dying.
Fucking living.
Yeah. So, or even
I had
having
to
a
clean the
job.
station vehicle because we sprayed champagne in it and gotten shit in the weekend.
Much more important concerns, right?
Yeah.
So I like to go deeper into your question, Dean, of why this happened. And you were talking about the CRTC. There's this term that every Canadian should be familiar with, but few are. It's regulatory capture. I love it. It needs a better brand though. Regulatory capture is when the regulators have been captured by the companies that they're trying to regulate. So I think a lot of people have probably seen that photo of CRTC chairman Ian Scott having beers with Bell.
I have it handy. I got it handy. This might come as a shock, but I had it handy. So that's Ian Scott and his sweet malt patch and a dark ale. And he's the head of the CRTC, used to work for TELUS, used to be a lobbyist. So he's fast friends with that guy across the table. Peter, just sorry to interrupt. That's Mirko Bibic, who is the CEO of Bell, who put out this like awful crying, oh, what about my German investors? Oh, but like, I don't know, 8 months ago, we put that up. But that's what you're getting. And listen, full disclosure, you and I have shared this information back and forth. We've been talking about this because this is a problem. In my understanding of how the CRTC works, which we are taught as radio people, as journalists, we are taught specifically in radio lock. Correct me if I'm wrong. Never mention the CRTC, never go against the CRTC, never question the CRTC, because the most important to radio people are licenses. So we're actually bred to fear guys like Ian Scott. And that's what shocks me about this picture is that that's the head of a competing organization that Ian Scott is supposed to manage from a regulatory perspective, correct?
Yes, and
maybe they just accidentally got placed there and they're waiting for a table in the main dining room.
Oh, well, there's so many things about that photo. So first up, Ian Scott should be noted. He is a former TELUS executive. So he's part of that, or he used to be part of that the Big Boys Club.
So he knows how wrong that meeting is.
Well, one of his current I can't remember what her exact position is at this moment, but one of like the high ups at the CRTC currently, a few years ago, wrote a PowerPoint presentation, and this is part of Tech Savvy. So Tech Savvy, just so everybody knows, we've appealed that crazy decision from May also to the courts and to the cabinet, and we've as part of our petition to the government, we've included that photo. And we've pointed out that this is not an isolated incident. Ian Scott has held numerous meetings solo with no witnesses. Who knows? Maybe they were in bars. We don't know. But we know this one certainly was. And that meeting, that's the other notable thing about that meeting, is it's days after Bell filed its appeal of those wholesale rates. Now, Bell registered this meeting officially as a lobbyist meeting. Good for them. Good job. But, those lobbyist meetings, they don't really have to say much about them. They said that this meeting was supposedly about broadcasting. So, sure, I'm sure there was absolutely no discussion of telecommunications or wholesale rates because, they said there wasn't.
I'm sure there was no. I'm sure that entire conversation, never once Locke, never once Bonzi, never once Peter. I'm sure not once in that conversation did Mirko bring up the fact that he would like to block out the sun just so they could continue to drive share prices. I'm sure that never came up once.
They were talking. This was in Ottawa. I'm sure they were talking about the Senators game the night before or something.
They weren't talking about how much Ian presses. That's for sure.
At least
look at him. Look at him. He just, to me, he looks like because he does. He just looks like one of those fucking automatic business rats. Like
he looks like.
And I know. Go ahead, Bonzi.
It reminds me of Gary Bettman. Sorry to cut you off, Dean.
Old Twitch.
That weaselly look,
I'm a weasel. Now, keep in mind, Peter's not saying any of that. Dean Blundell is. So, but like Jesus Christ, I mean, you can tell a lot in a picture for crying out loud. And this one ain't great. It's not good, Peter.
Yeah, I was just going to say the views expressed here do not necessarily reflect those of Tech Savvy.
That's probably a good thing to repeat at least once every 5-10 minutes through the course of this interview. I also would like to point out that apparently he cuts his own hair.
Dude, we all did during the pandemic. We all cut our own hair. You can't get on the guy for not having a bent haircut. I mean, Jesus Christ. But what is?
Yeah, you can.
Like, where is this at? I guess you can. Where is this at? Like, I know you filed appeals. I know that Tech Savvy is fighting like heroically on behalf of Canadians, on behalf of people who pay exorbitantly fucking high rates for internet service. I know that it has dashed your business, but where because this isn't over. I mean, the decision was made and you're fighting back. So where does it stand?
Yeah, well, so whenever the CRTC makes a decision, you've got 3 avenues for appeal, and we've already mentioned those. It's the courts, it's the CRTC itself, and then it's the government via the cabinet. So I don't think we've appealed to the CRTC yet. It doesn't seem like there would be
time.
Yeah, maybe. We can't seem to get Ian out for beers, so that it may not work. But yeah, we have filed to the cabinet, and we have filed with the federal court, I believe it is, for leave to appeal, which is like permission to appeal. So there's a couple of things that are going on there. So the appeals are based on a couple of factors. One is like legal factors, like the CRTC got all kinds of like legal and procedural things wrong here. Another aspect to it is there is the charge of bias. So we've, as part of that appeal, to the government anyways, Tech Savvy has requested that Ian Scott be removed from his position, because it's not just, one meeting for beers. Like I said, he's had I believe it's at least 11 meetings with the big boys since that since that 2019 ruling, by himself with no witnesses, which is against proper what's the rule? What's the word we're looking
etiquette?
For? Yeah, it's against I don't think it's actually like illegal, but it is very much against.
Someone got fired for it though, Peter, not long ago, right?
Yeah,
the previous president.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was a commissioner. Not the chair, Raj Shone, I believe he's here in Ontario. Cabinet actually removed him, and the main reason for that
doing the same thing.
Yeah,
doing the exact same thing.
Doing the exact same thing.
Exactly.
Sorry just to kind of add some teeth to this. According to reports, the National Post, Mr. Scott, quote, had at least 11 reported solo meetings with Bell, Rogers, or Shaw during the course of the CRTC's still open and active file. I believe that's where the problem lies, is that these are open and active files, and as such, you're not allowed to have private meetings to give the perception of bias, because that's exactly what the perception is, right?
Yep. And just before he, slapped down that reversal in May, he did an interview with a journalist where he, just outwardly expressed his preference for what's called facility-based competitors, which are basically it's like mumbo jumbo for those companies that own and build their own networks, as opposed to service-based or wholesale-based competitors, companies. Like
I've got a question about that. Is that, how much weight does that carry from the lobbyist perspective in front of the government, that these companies built the infrastructure? Is it huge?
So I think it's really funny, because we've seen there was a huge reversal, and the pandemic really somehow caused this reversal of thinking from the government. Because right from when this government was elected, 2015 and onwards, they were really talking about, and this was the industry minister, Navdeep Bains, they were really talking about affordability as number one. We view all forms of competition as valid, not just the competition between those companies that own the pipes, but the wholesale or service-based competitors like Tech Savvy. Those are vital too. In 2019, Bains gave a speech where he said that he actually considered software to be facilities or part of network-based investment. And like the people at Bell and Rogers lost their minds over that, because they're like, what? You're considering software to be investment? Then we're screwed if that's the definition that the government is going with. So they were very much moving towards this. And on the wireless front, there's this whole concept called MVNOs, which is mobile virtual network operators. That's basically what TechSavvy is, except for home internet. These would be companies that would get to access the networks of Bell, Rogers, and Telus, and then pay them for that access, but then deliver their own service to consumers. And this is basically, being virtual operators. And the government was very much in favor of this. The Competition Bureau was in favor of it. It looked like the CRTC was leaning in that direction too. But this was in April, just before the wholesale thing came down. The CRTC again, reversed itself. The decision they made on that was, no, we're not really going to have mobile virtual network operators either. If you want, we're sort of going to do it. But if you want to access Bell, Rogers, and Telus networks, you have to go and buy some spectrum. And spectrum is not cheap. They just had a spectrum auction that raised $8 billion. Quebecor in Quebec spent close to $1 billion, and they're considered to be, kind of a new entrant / competitor. So they effectively slammed the door on wholesale competition in wireless. So these are just again, going back to the whole, it's not just the photo of this guy having the beer. These are, it's a long train of anti-consumer, anti-competition decisions, and this all seems to have started with the pandemic. It seems like the government has signaled to the CRTC, this is the direction we want to go, and the CRTC is reacting accordingly. That's just sort of my observation.
My Facebook friend was right, Chad. We're turning into China.
It is oligarchy. I mean, there's really, if you want to look at it from that perspective, it is very oligarchy, because what I get is a real strong, and listen, I have information and I know people involved at Bell and Rogers and in the process of this whole thing, so I'm not a fucking idiot. But what I see from the outside in with the information that I have from the inside is this was an opportunity. The pandemic, you can put the name catalyst on it, but this was an opportunity for Bell, Rogers, and their government friends, their MPs, their para-government organization friends like Ian Scott at the CRTC, who came from that industry, to not just help cell phone providers and Wi-Fi providers and people in that space shore up total control and a monopoly, and it's like the first time Bell and Rogers have ever agreed to work together on anything, right? Like, it is, they hate each other. I worked at Rogers, you just were taught to hate people at Bell because that's what you were taught to do. So, when it comes to them working together, there's that sign. But what was the concerted effort? What does it look like? Who is helping who here? Because there's a huge benefit if the government is able to facilitate this kind of change and power on behalf of cell phone companies and internet providers. Then there's an onus on those cell phone providers, who are also our only real media outlets in this country, to report kindly on the people who made it possible for them to get exactly what they wanted. Do you see any of that? Because this is what I see. This is what I know is happening. That there's a trade-off on behalf of both parties that are trying to screw 35 million Canadians and people out of business. Am I on to something here? Do you see some of that? The scratch my back, I'll scratch yours bullshit?
Well, there's a real shift to, it's been, a lot of people have noted that there's been a very big shift by the government towards quote unquote big tech. A few years ago, the Liberal government was very supportive of the likes of Google and Amazon and so on. And if you look at things like Bill C-10, I'm pretty sure you guys have discussed that before. Bill C-10. Yeah, Bill C-10.
Slightly.
And Bill C-10 was this effort to, get money from the internet companies and, sort of distribute it a little bit more for supposed Canadian content creation. And the Canadian media, whether it's newspapers, whether it's broadcasters, is very much behind that because they want to get some of those advertising dollars back that has been taken or that has been absorbed by the likes of Google and Facebook. So there is a bit of resistance there in the traditional media to really, criticize something like Bill C-10, even though there was elements of C-10. That's where you started getting into the free expression problems and the regulating social media problems and all that stuff. I think there was, and again, this is the views expressed herein do not necessarily reflect those of Tech Savvy, but this is this is me as a former journalist. I think there is some element of almost a resistance to going after some of that legislation too hard by the media, because then they might not get those parts that they want. So, which is of course the money from.
They're spiking shit. They're spiking shit, reporting, and dude, it's not like, listen, you're just telling the truth. Like we had Dr. Michael Geist on, and we'll have him on again because he's a whip, and I love listening to him and talking to him. He's the preeminent copyright internet e-commerce guy on the planet. And he told us a story about how the Toronto Star spiked an entire story, a series, on exactly what you're talking about because they were waiting for the payout, and that payout might have been, regulations that help them, whether that was C-10 or this no harms bill, hyperlinks, all the stuff that go into the things that mainstream media wants to claw back and take away so they can monopolize even more for their shareholders that live in different countries, right? So that's, I think we're on the same team here. Like, I think we understand each other, and I think that there's, I think the word that I would use, and again, not necessarily used by you or the company, the word that I would use is collusion on behalf of each other and the government. James DeFiore has popped in. Yeah, say hi to James. He's in the prison library.
Hi, James.
I'm in the prison basement.
Yeah, good for you. You've got a question for the doctor, Dr. Peter Nowak, the doctor of internet shit. Yeah, go ahead.
I do, and then I have to jam because the warden is, milling about. Nice to meet you. Listen, I'm from rural Ontario. Okay, when I lived in Toronto, I paid $50 a month for unlimited internet. Now I pay about $4,000 a year because they pay on their hub, because they won't expand their infrastructure. But at the same time, there's a bunch of golden geese like me sitting around paying $4,000 internet. What is the incentive for them to expand internet? Because it feels like they just want to keep their golden geese alive.
Oh yeah, for sure. And that's exactly it. So I think there's two factors going on. One is there's a lot of, and I hate talking about Starlink because that gets the fanboys energized. But Starlink, this is of course Elon Musk's satellite broadband provider, has started offering service in rural parts of Canada and the US and so on. And I haven't experienced it myself, but from what I've heard, it's better than the options that are out there. That's somebody with deep pockets and brand recognition and so on. And if it's a service that's actually good and decent, that's scaring the crap out of the big guys. So they are waking up to probably the need to connect people in rural areas properly. The other side of it too is they're getting a lot of government cheddar to do it. And that's not to dump on just the big guys, because internet providers, including Tech Savvy, are getting all kinds of government grants to build out in areas that are, can be deemed uneconomical to do so, because it does cost a lot to lay fiber. And then, if you don't have a large volume of customers, it may take you forever to recoup how much it costs you to build those networks. So, but the government, I've just been seeing press release after press release that the government is just pounding tons of money into these rollouts. The question on that front, I think, is going to be, it's going to be great to finally get a lot of these communities connected with proper connections, fiber, and so on. But then, is that going to be their only option once they have it? I'm sure a lot of people will be relieved to finally be connected, but then it goes back to what you were saying: is at what cost?
I have a Starlink.
Can I just ask a quick follow up before I go? Before I go, I just want to know if the whole thing about offering unlimited, how realistic is it that like we're gonna crash the cell tower because a bunch of like people like me and or like not like me actually. I'm podcasting from the sticks, but other people are just checking email and stuff like. But they throttle your internet, the resellers, so that if you go over a certain amount of gigabytes, then they'll throttle your it's not usable. Bell doesn't unlimited, and that's why they make so much money. But couldn't they, given how sparsely populated we are, doesn't their existing infrastructure that goes to cell tower, can that not accommodate reasonable unlimited internet that's say below 200, between 50 and 200 gigabytes a month? Or like, are they telling us the truth that they just can't handle it, the system will be overloaded?
I'll be perfectly honest with you. I don't know enough about cellular technology to really give you an educated answer on that. What my what my compunction is that's more. I suspect it's more of a marketing / pricing thing. So if they give you, if you're talking wireless data, no way in hell are they going to give you 200 gigabytes a month at a reasonable price, because then that would, they'd have to do that for in cities as well, and it's not happening.
So I'll give you a quick update on the Starlink thing.
Jesus Christ. In and out like a robbery, that guy. Go ahead, Locke.
Okay, so I thought he was done.
He is now.
Yeah, okay, good. So in Alberta, they have lakes that you can't swim in, and everybody apparently wants a lot at these lakes that you can't swim in or drink water from. So, but there's very poor internet at a lot of these lake lots. And over the last year and a half, people have been looking for alternatives because a lot of people have been working at the lake, right? If you can work from home, why not work from the lake? And I have friends that they have a lake lot, and they are sharing between 2 or 3 of them a Starlink thing that's coming very soon. And it's saving them. I don't want to exaggerate, but I think more than half of what they're paying currently for a far better service. So they all had to have individual service, and it was quite a bit more than what they were paying, what they will be paying in September, October when this Starlink gets hooked up. And now they have, it's $100 for 100 gigs. Thank you. Thank you very much. That's exactly what it was. But it was quite a bit more than that. And what they were paying from the traditional servers. And now they can actually get away with the Starlink, whatever it is you buy. They're putting it on one house, and it's covering like a much larger area too. So the Starlink thing is coming, and I think it's readily available in a lot of areas.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm personally glad to see it because it is sparking that competition in those areas that just like it wasn't there. When there's no competition, there's no impetus to do anything there. And it's not just sparking competition with the likes of Bell and in Alberta, I guess it would be Shaw and or TELUS. It's other satellite companies. So our Canadian provider, Telesat, I think they're still Canadian. I can't remember if they're Canadian owned or not. Here in Ontario, the Ontario government just gave them a grant of, I want to say it's $150 million, somewhere in that vein. So what Starlink is doing is they're using low Earth orbit satellites. And these are, so traditional satellite internet, which you might get from a company like ExploreNet. These are satellites that are like way up there. I think it's like 35,000 kilometers up. And, it's not good because it's too far of a distance. There's a lot of delay in getting that signal back and forth. But what Starlink is using are the low Earth orbit satellites, which are a lot closer to Earth, as the name implies. And therefore, the signals are a lot stronger, a lot faster, and so on and so on. So Telesat is also using that technology. There's a couple other providers as well, but Telesat is the one with Canadian origins or Canadian ties, and they're getting a bunch of money to
Telesat.
Yeah, so they're getting a bunch of money to effectively compete with Starlink. So it's good. I think this is great. People who have had no options, I hope soon are going to be going to a couple of options, and I think that's where we want to get to, no matter where you are in Canada.
Will the Starlink ultimately bring down the prices and force the prices down once this really gets up and going?
Well, only competition will do that, I think. So, like if Elon Musk was the only game in town with that satellite,
like 20 Starlinks, tech savvy Starlink startup. That's the only way, right?
Sure.
Like the only way that, and we were talking about it before. The only way that Canada is going to dig out of this hole in terms of our economy as a group is by increased competition. It's by more people in the game. It's by people moving into those areas that are so high yield when it comes to revenue, so that companies like Tech Savvy can say, okay, now we're going to start this entire new division where we're going to offer cell phone service, and we're going to employ, I don't know, 700 people across the country to sell these cell phones. Like what Bell and Rogers and the government, and we see receipts of this, they say that they're in it for the consumer. They say they're in it for the customer, but just the preventative nature by which they've been telling other companies they cannot get into this industry, they cannot do this business, and handcuffing people like Peter and Tech Savvy and Start and all these other companies that are trying to do what's right for consumers. It's also killing the economy. And I don't see how, if the government is interested in its people and consumerism and doing the right thing for its people who are consumers, how this is a good idea at all. Like, just from an economic standpoint as a whole, it seems ridiculous to me that the government would be preventative when it comes to doing things for the economy. And this would be a big one just because of how much money is in that industry. Like, you're talking about $150 million throwaway for a grant. I want to get into cell phone coverage now. I want to get into cell phone service. I want some of those grants, because if it's that much of a need, they shouldn't be as preventative as they're being on the competition side of this whole thing, Peter, in my mind.
Right. And you look at some of the numbers, all of the big telecom companies, they were just reporting their quarterly earnings, and all of them are up. The Bell for 20.
Shocking.
Bell for 2020, the profit margin that they make just on home internet service, Bell's profit margin for 2020 was 43%. Now we filed some, I think it was with the Competition Bureau, a complaint with the Competition Bureau, where there was a bunch of math in there, and it's like all other industries, the average profit margin is somewhere around 15%, and yet these guys are making in the 40s. So that is money that is coming.
That's why they buy broadcasting outlets, to bring that profit margin down so it looks better on the books.
Yeah, they don't even know what to do with it. It's like, so
I had a conversation with someone the other day about Bell's radio assets, someone that worked at Bell, and I said to him, what do they plan on doing with the server? Because all they're doing is dual programming and having radio shows piped in, and his words to me, and I laughed. I'm like, what are you going to do with those assets? He goes, we don't care.
They don't.
And then
must be nice.
He goes, we use them to sell people cell phones. Like, it's free advertising, dummy. Yeah. And I'm like, that's okay. Thanks for telling me the truth. I appreciate that.
I had a funny text from a friend of mine. He was driving to Winnipeg, and he texts me, and there's a jock in town that everybody knows his name. He's a legendary. He's been here forever. And the text was, is Todd in every fucking market in Canada? I'm like, yeah, he is. Yeah, I think he's on about 50 radio stations.
Yeah, but that's because Rogers owns and Bell owns, between the two of them, and Chorus a little bit. They're not in the telco game. They own all the media. Like, that's my anger. My anger isn't just the fact that they're fucking us, like absolutely fucking all of us on a daily basis. It's that they have the media machine that doesn't report about these things. It's fucking us. So the media machine won't even report on it. So, people like us get in contact with people like Peter, and we say, can we tell the truth about what's going on? And then Peter's got to go back and he's got to figure out what to say and how he can say it. But they literally have that much control over us, and we don't even fucking work there. Like,
and this is the thing I think, again, a lot of people don't get, and it bugs me to my core, is it's not just about paying too much for your internet or your cell phone. I don't think a lot of Canadians realize exactly what you're talking about, is how much control these companies have over Canada. When I was a journalist and writing a humble blog for a magazine that was owned by Rogers, I would write about this stuff. And one of the editors there came to me and he said, I've been told to not publish your stuff when you're writing about this because it's critical of the parent company. We had a couple of years ago, the head of Bell Media was I can't remember if he was disciplined or if he was fired. This is Kevin Crowe, because this was the prior CRTC chairman who was quite, he was actually quite the consumer champion, I guess, by comparison to our beer guy. And he wouldn't, Kevin Crowe had him banned from TV because, he was saying anti-Bell things. One last anecdote I'll give you is back in the winter, we had this online day of action where we got all these consumer groups together and companies, small ISPs, to talk about all these problems and to sort of try to get some momentum going about this. And we were actually trying to get like a celebrity to host this thing, and we had a couple of people turn us down because they said, no, sorry, I can't, because I would be jeopardizing my my standing with Bell and Rogers and their media properties. So
I'll do it, Peter.
Next time, yeah, we'll come
for a carton of smokes and a 26 of Southern Comfort. I'm there for you.
Like, it's crazy. It's crazy. And it's when I talk about this stuff, I sound like I have a tinfoil hat on. But no, these companies.
I know that's what it does to you, dude. Like when I left the Edge, the warning with the little thing that I signed that they said, if you breathe a word of how we fucked you over, you'll never work in this industry again. And also, if you sue us, we're going to pass around the word that you're litigious, and so you'll never work in this industry again. And then when I went to work for Rogers and I left there, they're like, if you say a fucking word about this and you damage our reputation in any capacity, we're fucking coming for you. And I'm like, whatever, man. And even in the iteration of this, like, this is just a little blog. We've got, it's the biggest in Canada, but we got 85 podcasts. We've a well-attended ecosystem. We've got generalists that deliver information that is hard to see if you're working for a telco or if you work for one of these guys, only because we tell the truth. And through that, I have been threatened with jobs I don't have. Like a month ago, I got a phone call from someone saying, just so you know, my boss was thinking of hiring you for a gig, and he's not now because of how you spoke the truth about Bell and Mirko Bibic. So just letting you know. And my response to them was, okay, right on, man. Like,
Peter,
you're going to threaten me with something I don't have. But that is how it is almost. It's almost, and I know these don't reflect your views. It's organized crime in plain sight. Mm-hmm. That's how I look at it. Like, the fear
collusion's
that they put in you in this,
right?
Yeah, it's a great fucking word.
Yeah. Peter, before it gets buried, because on the comment section we're getting a lot of questions. Can you answer Brad's question just quickly before we lose him?
Telesat. That's the Canadian version of Starlink. Yeah, that would be Telesat. Again, I can't. I sort of remember feeling like they may not be Canadian anymore, but I could be completely wrong on that. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. Just look them up.
I have another question, Peter. How do we help you out and your company as just basic consumers?
Yeah. Does
it involve a jerry can?
It does not. No.
It's so
a glitter bomb.
In.
Does it involve a glitter bomb or wedging an executive? Like, what are we talking here?
Well, we have got this thing going called PaylessToConnect.ca. That's a website, PaylessToConnect.ca, cheap plug. On there, you can go there and write a letter to your MP saying, stop this, get the CRTC to reverse this decision. We just really need people to speak out about that wholesale rates decision. And we need people to speak out, and whether it doesn't have to be a letter to your MP, even get on Twitter or send them a handwritten letter, whatever it is you want to do. I know, like, I'm expecting if we get an election called, people are going to be coming to my door, knocking on my door, trying to get me to vote for whoever, and I'm going to have some good conversations with them. So anything you could do on that front, that's basically it. I know, like, this is such a hard issue because we do have much bigger things to worry about. The last year has just been hell, right?
And then the other thing too, right? Like, and it was brought up earlier, we were promised by this Liberal government that they were going to deal with the cost of our cell phones.
Yeah.
And it never happened. And it's easy for them to do it. They do stuff like that all the time. And it's not just, I mean, everyone knows, God knows, everyone knows how much I hate Justin Trudeau. But it's not just him. It happens on all sides of the floor politically, where they'll make a promise like that because they want you to go to the booths. If you're mad about how much it costs you for your cell phone every month, they want you to vote for them, and then they never actually come through on those promises. It's
brutal. There was a public survey or a public poll, what it was last week or 2 weeks ago, that showed that people like the priorities, people's priorities are actually starting to return to what they were before the pandemic, and affordability is tops amongst those. And so when we're talking about affordability, we're not just talking about cell phones and internet service. We're talking about everything. That includes, house prices are of course probably the biggest issue because
tires. My daughter blew out my wife's tire on her car, and I went to get it replaced, and it was a sidewall thing. And the guy hands me the bill, and I went, "Where's the real bill?" And he goes, no, that's the real bill. He's like, I'm like, you're charging me $350 for one fucking tire. He goes, I'm sorry, Locke. That's what it costs.
Wow.
And I said, I thought it was going to cost me $125. He put tires and rims on my Subaru a year ago, winters, for $700. Cost me $350 for one tire. Like, everything's going crazy right now, right?
Yeah, everything's expensive, dude. Like wood. I had to go buy some wood for some stuff that we were doing out back with the fence. And I'm like, how much is the wood? They're like, oh, it's like 5 times the price it used to be. I'm like, I think I'll just find some wood. Thanks. Yeah, I'm good. I'll go find some wood. But it is, this is in plain sight. Like, and that's why I wanted to have Peter on the show, because he and the group at Tech Savvy have been doing incredible work just trying to not just keep their business afloat while they're under attack by, power centers. See, these aren't just like, telcos. These aren't cell companies. These aren't media outlets. They're power centers that operate under the guise of being a power center to appease shareholders that have zero equity in this country. Like fucking no equity in this country. If you did, you would go to guys like Peter and you would say, hey, Peter, what can we do for people in this country for their cell phone rates, their bills, post-pandemic, lots of job loss, people just on a fixed income. It would be a really nice thing for everybody to support small third-party providers.
Damn it.
Do it for your grandma. Exactly. Peter, thank you for doing this. How can people get in touch with you, and where can they go to get educated, consume, and maybe join Tech Savvy in this revolution of massive proportions?
Sure. Yeah, well, you can find me on Twitter. I'm just at Peter Nowak. To get the info that you're talking about and to potentially get engaged, you can go to paylessconnect.ca. And then there's, techsavvy.com if anybody wants to, like you said, support. Yeah, that's kind of funny because during the course of the pandemic, there was this big buy local sports small business movement. And it's kind of funny because you don't think of your internet provider that way, but we qualify. So if you want to support small business, it's a crappy time to be a small business of any kind. So that's always a good move.
Yeah. Last question. All those books behind you of those different countries, please tell me you've been to all of them. Yes.
Most, if not all. And I can't look at those books
because
it makes me sad.
I had more questions about the cats, but the books is a good one.
Yeah, tough to travel. I don't know if you guys saw this today, but the government of Ontario put this out. They're finally separating new infections by who's vaccinated and who isn't. 90% of all new infections, ladies and gentlemen.
Wow.
90%. Like it's 86.9 or 89. I can't read it from here.
It's higher in Alberta. It's 89%. Oh, hold on. No, you have the same number we have.
Yeah.
That's the same
number. Okay. This is across Canada. Unvaxxed, it's like 89%, 5% partially vaxxed, another 5% partially vaxxed. Fully vaccinated. This is new. This just came out today. Fully vaccinated, you have basically 99.5% protection against contracting not just the disease, but also coming down with severe issues or death. 99.5%. When you look at that, Peter, as an employer, as an executive, and you hear that this government is going forward and plans on going forward, which won't happen, but by the way, the guys in the Fordzy government are feeding me information by the day. They're like, passports are coming, don't worry about it. But when you hear healthcare professionals begging for vaccines, as a journalist, I put your journalist hat on, and you see the science, you see the data, we just laid it in front of you. Your thoughts on the government not mandating vaccines for healthcare workers, frontline workers, teachers, people who work with kids, healthcare professionals, federal buildings, provincial buildings. I'd love to get your take on it.
I honestly don't understand it. I don't understand. You like to think that in Canada we are. I think it's generally true that in Canada we are more respectful of our government than perhaps our neighbors to the south. So I think our governments, plural, here can ask more of the people. And so if they were to mandate this sort of thing, I don't see why there would be a commotion over it. I know there's obviously a small vocal minority that would have a very big problem with this, but that's not how democracies work. You don't cater to the small vocal minority. So I don't get it. I honestly don't. Every day goes by, and as you said, with Ontario, vaccine passports to me are just, I don't get why we don't have them. I joked with you, Dean, yesterday that I'd be happy to talk to you about Blue Jays if you want, because I'm a huge Blue Jays and baseball fan. But how is the Rogers Center? How is the Rogers Center?
That must have been hard to chew on.
How is the
it sucks. Like it
what sucks? It sucks that it's named the Rogers Center, doesn't it? Like the guys like us.
Actually, since we're on a tangent, I just don't. I don't even understand why they didn't just call it the Rogers Sky Dome. Like, why? Why couldn't you just throw us a bone? Anyway, why are they letting people in there?
Awesome.
Why not?
Well,
why are they letting people in who are unvaccinated? I don't get it. And then
scared.
They're
scared.
Yeah,
they're scared. Like we talk about it here.
I'm so
all the
glad
time.
James isn't on right now.
I know, right? Yeah, we shut him out. But we talk about this all the time. Fear is supposed to be an indicator of change, right? Like when we feel fear, we're like, oh, it's something. I feel extreme fear thinking about going down to a fucking Blue Jays game, not for my life, because I know I'm protected, I know I'm vaccinated, but the people I come in contact with for 7 hours after a game, I worry about. I don't know if they're vaccinated, and it blows my fucking mind that, and we talk about it here daily, that it is that hard for people to understand that this is a seatbelt. That's all it is. It is a seatbelt that gives you 99.5% protection against severe illness, hospitalization, and dying. Yet, like, the Blue Jays are so, and it comes down to money. I think it's got to be, right? They don't want to turn anybody off. They don't want to be on any side of this conversation, including the right side, because what we're seeing in real time is what's really important to not just our government, but to individual businesses who don't want vaccine passport mandates.
Yep.
The thing that I've sort of come around on, because I'm the less government guy, so I've struggled with this conversation, and I kind of understand the lack of respect for governments, the concern about somebody getting getting power they don't deserve, and all of that. Like I can get dragged into that conversation quite easily. So the vaccine passport, to me, where I'm coming around on it is because there's a personal freedom conversation and an angle that keeps getting thrown out there as well. And this is my body, and my medical information is my information. It's not none of your business. The thing that I think keeps getting missed in the conversation is if you aren't vaccinated, you don't have a passport. And you don't have to go to that place that's demanding you to present a vaccine passport. So it isn't infringing on your personal freedoms. If, let's say, the Jays said you could only come with a vaccine passport, they're not going to know if you don't have the vaccine because you're not allowed into the fucking game. Right? So am I wrong? So I like, because the vaccine passport.
No, you're not. You're not wrong.
It would be
you're not wrong.
presented to people that got vaccinated, and they would be able to use it for the organizations and events and restaurants and businesses that were demanding it for their own protection and for what they want to do.
Yeah. And the thing that gets me is, what's the alternative? The alternative is that stuff's going to get shut down eventually. So, like, do you want to have some of it or do you want to have none of it? That's what bugs me is.
Well, and the people that aren't vaccinated now were the loudest about the shutdown too.
Yeah.
That's the other thing that pisses me off. That's why I want vaccine passports, because I want their heads to blow off. I keep
We're just
saying
in
that,
it
but
for the content, Peter.
Yeah.
We're just in it for the content. That's all we're in it for. But you're right. I mean, what's the alternative? You like, it's coming. It'll be here in 3 weeks. There will be a vaccine passport system in place. They won't call it that in Ontario because Christine Elliott and Doug Ford don't believe in vaccines. That's a fact. And the receipts tell you the story. So when it happens, Lachlan and I are going to get a window booth at a Montana's.
And I'm hoping there's a demonstration outside of the Montana's, because the Montana's,
I'm in a perfect one.
World. Yeah. They will only let people in. I don't know why Montana's is funny, but it's just funny.
Well, because I just think that an unvaccinated person would probably want to go there first. So in my mind, like, I'm thinking to myself, I might even start like a thing on Reddit where I invite all the crazy bastards down to that Montana's and
That's
say,
a
"We're
great
protesting,
idea.
you crazies."
Actually, I live about 2 blocks from the barbecue place. You're all free to come down to Adamson's.
Oh, you do?
I do.
No, they're shut down now, aren't they?
They're done. Yeah.
Yeah. So that, again, another great example. What's the alternative? Chris Adamson goes nuts. He fights the police. He is now broke. His GoFundMe money is gone. And he just lost 2 massive court cases. And they basically told him, go fuck your hat. So what's the alternative?
He didn't blow any of that money on cocaine.
I don't know. I can't answer that. Anyway, Peter, listen, I appreciate you being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It was fun.
Yeah, I hope you had some fun. Are you going to watch the Jays game this afternoon? Or
sorry? Oh, no. I got a better question. Are you going to watch the Field of Dreams game tomorrow, Peter?
I think so. I got to check to see. Is it just being broadcast on YouTube?
Yankees, White Sox. It's got to be on cable. Come on. It has to be.
Yeah. I do have cable. I forgot.
It is. It's going to be on Sportsnet. Yeah. That's the thing, is that you can't get away. That's the thing. You cannot get away from it, right? Like, you can't get away from the things that we're talking about or the people you're talking about, no matter how hard you want to. You have to engage with them if you want to watch the Field of Dreams game, or if you want to watch the NHL playoffs, or Jesus, it's like
the only reason I have cable is because of sports, right?
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Me too. Thanks, Peter. Appreciate you.
Thanks, guys.
We'll talk to you soon. At Peter Nowak on Twitter is where you can find him. Yeah, appreciate you. Nice to see you. You okay there, big fella? Bonzi, are you all right?
Oh, he can't hear us.
Bonzi, can you hear us?
Yeah.
You got us?
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah. What are you doing?
I can hear him.
There's a bit of a delay.
He's getting ready.
I want to know what. I don't know why those. I want to know who was behind him. Like, did you see that when Peter's on? There's guys like wandering around with tape measures and stuff. The whole time I'm thinking, oh, they're finally building a cage around Bonzi.
We're on the first hole of the dinosaur.
He's back.
Hey, dude, can you hear us? You see us?
Hey guys, I can see you guys fine. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, buddy.
Yeah, we got you now. Want to ask you a couple of questions. Where are you, by the way?
I'm in Palm Desert, California still, and I'm actually just at the tee off at the Dinosaur, the home of the Dinosaur Classic, where the LPGA plays every year here.
Okay,
cool.
No, that's good.
Just about
good
to
for
go
you.
and play that, and then we're just getting heading out to the first tee.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I want to
story,
see a golf
I
swing
mean,
from old Bonzi.
It was a great interview with Buddy, and it went. So hopefully
Yeah.
we can catch up. I got some great stories to tell you.
Yeah. So you're leaving now? Like that was that what you were trying to allude to? That you got to tee off and you got to go.
Before we go, I know there's a couple I wanted to touch on. So,
Did you get laid? Get laid yet? No.
well,
Get laid?
both
Just a quick question.
5 or 10 minutes or so, give or take.
Mm-hmm.
No,
He's going to get laid on the golf
but
course. That's
I'm
great.
trying, and here's the funniest story. No,
You're gonna
let
get
him
laid
go.
on the golf course?
I haven't even.
Yeah, he
I'm
can't understand.
trying. There's a plus.
No, he can't understand what we're saying. I got to let him go. Yeah. I'm not doing that. I'm not going to try and make something work. I'm not going to work against the laws of the universe. The laws of the universe said don't put Bonzi on today, whatever you do.
I was thinking the same thing. Good luck with that cage, though. We should hopefully those guys are able to build it quick enough.
We put out a poll yesterday, Locke, and it may surprise you that we're fucked. We put out a post about this at deanblundell.com today. We did a straw poll for the number 4 daily news podcast in Canada. I'm leaning toward, because I just wanted to know, right? Like, I'm like, let's get a feel. Trudeau, Tool, Jagmeet, or there's no one.
That doesn't surprise me.
Do you see those numbers?
Yeah.
25.8% said Trudeau, then 19% O'Toole, 11.5% for Jagmeet, 44%. The lion's share of people that we canvassed yesterday said there's no one to vote for. I have no idea who to fucking vote for.
This doesn't surprise me at all, and the reason why, I mean, Trudeau gives me a twitch, like legitimately. Like, we got to get rid of this guy. We're in trouble, and the problem is we haven't got an option. There just isn't. I know, like, the Conservatives, that when I say that on my show, they get pretty riled up that I'm thinking of a protest vote again, right? And the point about the protest vote for me is that we're in Western Canada. We have absolutely no say in what happens in this country. I mean, it's decided by Quebec and Ontario. So I
remember when I was a kid and growing up, and we would watch election results come in Alberta, and we would be like, yeah, the Conservatives are going to kick ass. And then all of a sudden, as time went on and they started counting votes in Ontario, I remember feeling defeated as a kid, like, just because and it wasn't like I was into politics, but I remember who my dad voted for. And I remember them being psyched when we were watching the returns on television because the Conservatives were winning and, that's good. Finally, Western representation, and they would just get smoked. So I get that. Like, I totally understand what you're saying.
And to be fair to everybody that is in that 44%, I mean, they're all the same, man. It's so tough right now to make a decision politically. And you know what I think I'm going to try to do moving forward is I'm going to try to get way more engaged in civic politics, just because I think that you can actually have an impact on what happens locally. And I mean, I can sit and yell about Trudeau and all the dumb shit he does, but I think you have way more impact locally as a voter than you do federally. And I'm not suggesting not to vote federally. I'm suggesting that the vote goes further. And it's surprising how few people, like, there's a very strong liberal sort of leaning city council here in Edmonton. And I can't even vote in Edmonton. I'm in St. Albert. I'm in a community just outside of Edmonton. But I mean, I call them the bike lane gang, and they're very liberal. And I've talked to a couple of the guys, and I know when they say things like, I'm voting for this because I know it's the right thing to do. I know exactly what they're saying. I'm voting for this because I know that the 15% of the people that actually vote are very, very liberal, and they want things like 30K speed limits, and they want things like bike lanes in a city with 6 months of winter. So they cater to that population. And then people phone and go, how did this ever happen that we got $25 million worth of bike lanes in the downtown core in Edmonton? And I'm like, because you don't vote. That guy that would have an impact on that decision doesn't vote. It's the guy with skinny jeans and I don't want to, it'll be insulting. I'll stop there.
Good. And you're not wrong, and it's getting worse. And I think that was the point of doing the whole poll, right? Like I wanted to, because we sit here and talk about how there's no one. Like, who are you going to vote for?
There is no one.
Trudeau. We got an election being called this next week. Here's what dawned on me too, and I think that this is kind of driving it, if I'm not mistaken, is that we're heading into the fourth wave of a global pandemic, which has shut us down for 2 fucking years, kept us in our house for 2 years. There doesn't need to be an election. This is technically a snap election that
he knows
that
he's
could
doing
put
it
up
on purpose.
So not only is he using our health and a national health crisis as a way to kind of grab a few more seats, consolidate the power in his power center, what he's also doing is he is actively telling us to get vaccinated and to follow protocol, and then he's forcing us to make a decision when there's no real decision to be made, and he knows that, right? So using the pandemic, he's doing it. O'Toole yesterday, he's like, please don't call an election. It's a terrible time to call an election because of the fucking pandemic. So he's using it to get out from underneath it because he knows he's going to get fucked. And then Jagmeet yesterday is like, I'm trying to figure out how to stop the election when Trudeau calls it, but I can't figure it out. Someone help me. And he's using the health crisis, and he's using the pandemic for his own personal gain. And I put out a tweet yesterday, and like hundreds of people liked it. And it was just kind of a throwaway tweet. And the tweet was effectively, just reminding people that, listen, that all of the people who want to be your prime minister in this next election are using our health and a national health crisis to fuck us again.
Now you can understand why people are anti-vax and anti-mask, though, Dean. I know we rail against it, but that's where I come from on this whole thing. Not that I'm saying you should be doing this. I get where we're at because of how politics manipulates the situation and plays a part in dangling this shit in front of us. Can I answer that question from Sean?
Yeah, which one?
Sean G. So for me, like as an Albertan now for a number of years, because I mean I moved around quite a bit as a kid, and I until Edmonton I had never lived anywhere more than 6 years in my life. I consider Alberta my home now. I would say that we haven't had a good leader for years, and I am, how anti-liberal I am. I'm even more anti-NDP. I was not a fan of Nutley, and I went out of my way to vote against her, and I actually made sure I didn't do a protest vote this last time around because I wanted to make sure but that's the biggest issue, Sean. The biggest concern I have about where we're at with politics is that we never actually vote somebody in worth voting in. We always vote the guy that's out. So the replacement comes in and everyone's like, oh, okay, Kenny's here. He's going to make it. Oh, no.
Breath of fresh air.
Too, right? Like, you know what I mean? We end up getting stuck with a guy that just got the job because we were so pissed off at the person that had it before him or her. That's the biggest issue I have with Canadian politics right now. And I'm not sure it's any different in many other democratic countries around the world. And it's unfortunate that we can't find somebody that steps up that we want to vote for.
Yeah.
Trudeau is going to get this. He's going to win this next election. It seems fairly obvious to me, not because he deserves it, but because everyone's terrified of O'Toole and
There's
Trudeau has
no one.
better hair. That's why
Way
he's going to
better.
win. Anyway.
Wait, you're right. You're right. Everything you just said is right. Everything you just said is accurate. According to the poll that we took, according to the kind of fucking temperature of the room, I cannot vote for a guy who wants to remove free speech from our daily lives. So Trudeau's fucking out. Not to mention the 10 years worth of blackface that he liked to rummage around in. So there's that. I can't also vote for a guy whose entire party just tried to stop conversion therapy and doesn't believe the pandemic is real. I can't. I cannot also equally vote for a guy whose only interest is making fucking Twitter videos on TikTok who seems to think that he has the nuclear football when it comes to fucking elections, and all he has to do is go and talk to the new governor general, and she can stop. I mean, it's almost fucking ridiculous that at the age of 48, I'm now looking at the political landscape in full embarrassment, knowing that I have voted every year that I've been eligible to vote. I became a Canadian, so I could vote. I was born in England. I've lived here my whole life. It was important to me to be able to exercise that right. So 20 years, I became a Canadian so I could do that. This will be the first time. Important. Oh, I do too. But yeah. I also had another thought. I'm like, well, listen, those people, we get told that, our ancestors and soldiers died for our right to vote. I don't think they did. I think what they did was they died for our right to be able to make a difference and actually tell the truth about the merits of the people that are taking us down a road that we don't want to go down. And none of the people that are currently running for prime minister are worthy of a vote for prime minister. Not one. O'Toole isn't, Jagmeet isn't, and Trudeau isn't. And so that's the voter apathy. Like, if you thought nobody voted in the last election, holy fuck, dude.
Yeah.
No one.
It's going to be bad this time around. Well, and now we're shedding some light on why there's craziness happening in other countries as well, because it's not even as bad in Canada as it is in other parts of the world. That's why fucking Trump got in. I mean, if we're being honest with ourselves, there was probably a lot of people that went into that ballot bot behind that screen and put down his name and went, fuck it. Let's light it on fire.
It's the Bodie McBoatface theory. Like, when they asked the people of England to name their brand new Coast Guard boat, and you could vote for any name that someone put up, and the winning vote was Bodie McBoatface. It's the same theory. Like, we are in Bodie McBoatface territory where we're like,
we are.
just to be assholes, we might elect an asshole.
Yeah.
Because we're so sick of all the assholes, right?
That's actually a good strategy. I might look for the biggest dick and
Great
vote.
Strategy.
Yeah. I was, as protest votes for years, I was voting for the Green Party. And then they started to win some seats, and I was like, whoa, need to stop that shit.
And now they don't have a leader, and they're going to implode in this next election. So you're super fucked.
They're in trouble. Yeah, they're in trouble. The Green Party's in trouble in the middle of the worst climate change crisis in the world.
Ever.
What does that say about where we're at?
How hard would it be to come up with a new party? Common sense, merit-based party that literally the only goal it was to find the best and the brightest, not friends, not some asshole lawyer that can't cut it on Bay Street, so he's got to get into politics.
Yeah.
Not some douchebag drunk doctor whose license got taken away, so he gets to get into politics. But like, what if we went, let's go and get that neuroscientist to run in Cape Breton. Let's go and get this Michael Geist, the most knowledgeable cat in the history of internet e-commerce.
And then we get them to win. I got a major problem with your idea here.
What's that?
Anybody who's smart would never get into politics. That's the
but there's a movement of smart people that just decided they had enough, and they said, "Listen, we want to change things." I don't think we're far off. I don't think we're far off from someone riding onto the scene that's Trudeau-esque, that also isn't just an enormous fucking pussy and giant.
You know what? I don't even need the guy to be smart, Dean. I don't know why you're hung up on intelligence. I just want somebody to fucking tell the truth. Like, honestly, And that's and I've said this. I said this on the air countless times about this new strategy in Alberta. I just want them to admit that this is what they're doing with this whole COVID protocols being lifted on the 16th. I want
just
them
leaving
to
them to
admit
their own
it.
devices.
Yeah. Listen,
ahead,
fuckers, you're on your own.
Die.
We're open for summer. That's the strategy, or that's the tagline. What it should be is, you're on your own, fuckers. We gave you every opportunity to get vaxxed. The only people getting sick and dying are the unvaxxed. You're on your own, fuckers. I would vote for that dick. I swear to God, I would vote for him in a heartbeat.
Dude, you're getting votes here. Ryan's like, lock for PM. He'd be the greatest
God.
PM. Ben Titty said that. And then Ryan's like, yeah, man, make Block the prime minister. He would be a terrible prime minister. Did you see him take the garbage out the other day? Did you see this?
Brad's my running mate. I'm grabbing Brad as my running mate.
It's my favorite video of all time now. I watched it last night by myself like I was a weirdo. I'm like, I gotta watch that. My buddy Locke take out the garbage in his. And the only reason why I did is because I'm like, I don't have the nuts to do this. That's what you can't see, listener, is Lachlan in his Speedo taking the garbage out on a beautiful sunny day in the middle of the afternoon. And that is all he's wearing. You tell me that you wouldn't want that guy to be your prime minister. That is our next prime minister right there. Yeah. Lachlan for PM. I like it.
I am releasing another video today with within the realm of the I don't give a shit August that you will like, and it features my dog.
Good.
So yeah, watch for that a little later on today.
Taking a shit on church property?
No,
yeah, don't I?
No.
That would be a great video, though. You encouraging your dog to shit on church property.
I'm going to get in trouble from the church, I know, because there was some old ladies that were out tending to the gravestones just on the other side of the hedge where Kingston and I run, and they were eyeing me up something fierce. Old Ethel. Ethel and Rose. Ethel and Rose had their fucking stink eye on me and the dog.
You know why people love church when they get older? You know why they go to church? Is because they realize at the age of 83 that their life was fucked and they were terrible people. So that's why they go to church. They go to church to try and release all the fuckery. Yeah. So you don't want to know Ethel either. She was probably a massive bitch.
We'll see you in church soon, Dean.
All right, bud. That is Lachlan Cross. Thanks to Peter Nowak from Tech Savvy for joining us today. You can find Peter on Twitter at Peter Nowak, and go to Tech Savvy Solutions. Listen, go and get them for your internet service. They actually like people and they like dealing with people, and that's their business. They don't just kind of hang you out to dry because they're really only concerned about one thing, which is shareholders. So use Tech Savvy if you can. Thanks to our friend Lachlan Cross, 95.7 Cruise FM at Edmonton. You can listen to him. I know that you had a problem at work yesterday. I'm sorry we couldn't get to it today. I want to get to it tomorrow.
Oh, that's fine. Right? Yeah. It's all resolved. We had our punishment. We dealt with it. Yeah.
Okay. I want to hear about it tomorrow. But thanks for doing this.
Yeah. Also, we need to talk, and this is a tease for maybe within the next week or so, but you're coming to Edmonton, and our plan and my conversation with my wife needs to be shared about your involvement in my vacation.
Okay. Yeah, because you'll be on vacation at that time, right?
Yes.
Yeah. No, I'm coming. No. I'm coming on vacation with you guys.
I keep warning her.
Yeah, I grab a sleeping bag because
you know what Jimmy said to me today. He goes, "Well, you should just tell her that fucking she always brings the kids. You're allowed to bring Dean."
We'll talk about it tomorrow. Thanks, All right. Great to see you.
Take care, man.
That is Lachlan Cross. 95.7 Cruise FM in Edmonton is where you can find him as well, or on Twitter at Lachlan Cross. Thanks, everybody, for being part of the podcast. Don't forget to pick up our Gitch from our friend Ed. Ed's Fine Imports has your Gitch. Luxury underwear, boxer briefs. Order 4 pair for the price of 3 with promo code GITCH, then the number 3. Gitch, and then the number 3. EdsFineImports.com. Support local business. It's really important to do so. Oh, you want to support local business? Have I got a local business for you to support? EasyAutoFinancial.ca. They're a local company. Yeah, that's right. And you know what they do? They get you financing for a car. Hard to find financing because you fucked up your credit? Don't worry about it. These guys, that is their wheelhouse. Ooh, they're going to spin you a deal. They'll also find you your car and the dealer that has it and get you all your financing absolutely free of charge. Go to Easy Auto Financial today. EasyAutoFinancial.ca. Our friends at Domination, they make software that helps you do this job super easy, super quick. One file, 72 pieces. It takes minutes instead of hours. Go to domination.com and try them for free today. DMNTN.com. And Blue Microphones, officially part of the Blue Crew. Everybody here at DeanBlundell.com operates with Blue equipment, including this Blue Yeti X microphone. We use it. It's the best. It's industry defining. That's what I heard yesterday. So that's got to be good, right? I mean, we sound like we know what we're doing. And super easy to hook up. XLR, they've got USB, they've got every microphone you can imagine, including MoFi headphones. Check them out today. If you're a streamer, if you're a gamer, please go to bluemicrophones.com or at bluemic.com or Blue Microphones on Twitter, at Blue Microphones. That's it. Have a great day, everybody. That's it for me. See you tomorrow. Can't remember who's on the show tomorrow. We'll figure it out. Be nice to each other. Go get fucking vaccinated. Right? Unvaccinated, lots. Fully vaccinated, none. If you can't see the stat, go get vaccinated. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks for being part of the podcast. You can find everything we do at DeanBlundell.com.